Welcome to a tag-along discussion. I am your host, Bilal Khan, and with us we have today Raha, originally from Colorado, currently living in Saudi, right?
Yeah.
We have Reem, who's from Houston, living in Doha, Qatar. We've got Ammar from Maryland, and yours truly, currently in Houston. So the topic of this tag-along discussion is Tajweed. One of the best, just a side note, one of the best ways to get people to smile when you're trying to take their picture is tell them to say Tajweed. So that's one of the, just a quick tip. But anyway, one of the cool things about IlmSummit, and one of the things I found earlier, I was telling some of the guys before IlmSummit started, listen, if you're here and you're going to skip out on any sessions, go to the Tajweed sessions. And they're like, Tajweed? Really? I'm like, just go to the first session and then tell me. And then during the first morning, after Fajr, he turns around and is like, yo, this is interesting. I know one of the things that I learned from you, that you actually have an ijaza, similar to like a certification of having a permission to be able to teach other people the art of Tajweed. And what was your response and reaction to the way that Wissam was teaching here at IlmSummit?
So I've been studying Tajweed for a long time, alhamdulillah, like 10 years now. And when I first came to IlmSummit and I saw the course, I was like, I can just get extra hours of sleep because it looks all from what I've studied before. But then I came the first or the second day and I'm like, I want to see how it is. And like, subhanAllah, everything he said was new to me because he taught characteristics of letters. He taught us to use our whole body as like a vehicle to perfect our Tajweed. And that is something, even though I've been like studying, I have never been taught that way before.
I mean, something you said earlier is just like the performance factor.
Performing salah, yeah. It's something that makes you interact with the Quran in a deeper level. So memorizing the Quran is something that, we did much younger in school and whatnot. To be able to say Tadweel, something that he taught us was...
What was that word?
Tadweel.
Tadweel.
Yeah.
Okay, what
so
does that mean?
when you recite a letter, some letters, when you hold them down, you actually move your tongue on the inside of your mouth.
Oh, like a wheel.
Yeah, like a wheel.
Okay.
Tadweel.
Tadweel. Okay.
And another thing that I learned was...
Is that a made-up word or is that...
I think it's an Arabic word. I don't know.
Tajweed, I've heard it before, but I don't.
Okay, so it's not made-up. Okay.
And then there was...
the certified instructor heard it before.
And there was another thing that he taught us, which was to be able to teach using English words. So that was something that when we teach Tajweed, we say qutb jad, we say khusadat,
qalqala.
yeah, we say qalqala, yeah. So a lot of these terms don't relate to people. But when you say cat feels cool or like happy versus awesome, that's something that interacts with us.
Gotcha.
On a more personal
And another thing, like just like you said, with the pronunciations of letters, he would help us use words. So how people can't make their ra thick enough, he'd say use the word R-A-W, raw. And then people have that automatic thing where they already make the R thick in the word raw.
Right.
And then that doesn't come to them when they are reading Quran. So connecting them together really made a difference, and I heard it.
One of the things that, I don't know if it was on you or somebody else, where he kept saying, say Susie.
Yeah, it was me.
Oh, that was you. Okay, so
Yeah.
it was just the idea of like...
Making your dhamma more thick. So if I say umiru versus umiru, like if I say Susie the way my lips pucker out, it emphasizes the harakat more.
I think the key thing that we're learning about here is just the idea of having information that traditionally has been considered foreign to be contextualized into relative terms. Because the way that's been codified was relevant to the people
of that time.
Yeah, for whom it was codified.
Absolutely.
For. The art of breathing, the idea of in working out, even martial arts training. One of the things that they'll do is they'll have you spar, do whatever, and then they'll have moments of where you breathe for 30 seconds just to recover.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they also say is that fitness isn't so much how much you can push, how much you can lift, but how quickly you can recover. And I just remember Wissam talking about how some of the best reciters, what they do on the side is they do a lot of swimming.
Interesting.
Because
it's called The Training Effect. There's a book called The Powerful Engagement where the author mentions that.
Oh, Tony Schwartz.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
So he mentions how every good athlete pushes himself to the max, and what differentiates one from the other is how quick they can recover and what they do in that time. Breathing, the art of breathing, as Ustad Wissam Sharif said, was being able to inhale for 1 second, and for that second, you hold it for 4 more, and then exhale for 2 seconds. So the reason we do that is to be able to pronounce every letter and give it its right, and that is with tajweed. And تعطي كل حرف حقه.
Can we try that right now?
Sure, but I don't know what you just said.
To give each letter its right.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's try it right now, yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's
So now
interesting.
we're like in the phase of tajweed.
So, I mean, one of the questions that I had for you, being a certified instructor, do you see yourself teaching people differently now? But the question is, the way Wissam is teaching seems very contextual to a Western audience. So if you're in Saudi, no, Doha, I'm sorry, I keep confusing. So if you're in Doha, although it is a very modern Middle Eastern nation, but if you're instructing there, how well do you think the people would receive that outside of a American, Canadian, UK, Australian audience?
I haven't taught many people yet because I just got my DESA like 3-4 months ago.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. But over there in the Middle East, the locals, they usually already know how to pronounce because they've been raised with that. The Khaliji accent has a very thick, like it's a thick accent, so
Okay.
they are used to
Even brown folks like ourselves?
no,
or-
the locals of Qatar, like
Locals
the
of
Arabs,
Qatar,
yeah.
okay, the Arabs, not
yeah,
the Desis.
yeah. So if
Okay.
I were to
I was like,
teach,
Desis, they have good accents?
No.
Since when?
so if I were to teach expats and not locals, then yes, I would use this
Gotcha.
same way because they would be speaking English. But if I were to teach Arabs, then I would assume they already know how to make a thickness. So I just correct them wherever needs to be corrected, and they would know how to correct it.
No, Arab, like, what kind of mistakes do Arabs make?
I don't know, I'm trying to like...
I've come across Egyptians who will
Okay.
make the Jim mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing is that Qataris in the Khaliji accent, Qaf is ga. So Qatar is Qatar.
Ah,
Jim is ya. So if you say Yom al-Jum'ah, it's Yom al-Yum'ah.
Wow.
And then Kaf is cha. So
Chief
Shlonek,
oh, it's like
Shlonek, no,
the
in the end. So Shlonek is Shlonich for women only.
Okay.
okay,
So
and
maybe
that'll
unconsciously,
spill into the
sometimes,
recitation.
usually with the Qaf, they
Okay.
would say like, but it's not that common because they've been reading Quran for a
So will
long
they say hayya
time.
instead of haqqa?
Hagga.
Oh, hagga.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's very Egyptian.
So the judge is the yay.
Okay, gotcha.
I think one thing that I see in Egyptians is making everything light.
Okay.
Like everything... Yeah.
Okay.
And even in like recitation of the Quran, some verses need to have like more power to them. Some words, they have to be heavier.
Gotcha.
But in Egyptian, it's just like...
Yeah, so the
كل حاجة ماشية
Qataris
بحال.
make things more thick,
Okay.
like unlike Egyptians.
Egyptians were like in the alif, so instead of saying sama, they'll say sama a.
Yeah.
So like
Okay.
in the imala.
Gotcha.
So the only thing is, I guess their accent sometimes comes into the Quran.
So a lot of engagement that you would probably be doing, if with Arabs, would be more so specific areas of pronunciation or tonal differences.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the non-locals,
Especially with the Desis, like they don't know how to pronounce 6 letters, so ayn and qaf and ghain. Like that's the thing that we
Yeah.
could use English language for. I mean, I speak Urdu, but it's not good enough to use
I hear
to use it as Wissam Sheikh used English.
Gotcha.
But you know, the way he used English would work on most people.
Gotcha. Well, for those of you who are aspiring to recite the Quran, connect better with the Book of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, but haven't made that commitment yet, I recommend that you do so. It doesn't have to be a large commitment. It could be things like working towards that which you already know and solidifying and making that excellent. One of the things that he's been, I don't know if he's been doing it yet, but I've noticed some of the people, they're writing the verses.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody memorize that way. Because memorizing was always just like reading and then closing the book and reading it from your mind. But this time he has us write it so that even your hand will remember it. And then you read it as you're writing it, so then your tongue will remember it and so on and so forth like that. And your ears will hear it, so they'll remember it.
As part of your training, did you do the writing?
No, because my mom taught me,
Okay.
taught me the Quran, and I was very young. So I was 5 when I started and 7 when I finished.
Mhm.
So I used the most of my memorization. I started
You were
memorizing.
7-year-old when you finished memorizing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I started memorizing before I knew how to read.
Gotcha.
So I didn't know how to read, I couldn't write. But then towards the end, whenever there was a passage of the Quran that I would constantly keep making mistakes on. My mom would make me write it like 2, 3, 4 times, and that's why they even say when you're taking notes, it's better to write than to type, because when you write it, it's instilled into your brain.
Gotcha. So basically, in the problem areas, she was like, all right,
Yeah.
let's use in different sensory engagement. Gotcha.
But
And
obviously, if you're older, then writing would be more effective.
I think one other thing that he does is when I memorized when I was younger, it was something that was being able to get done. Just finish your page, finish your your hizb or whatnot. But the way he does it is he pauses and he tries to even translate. So
Okay.
even in Surah Al-Fatiha, something as basic as that, he's saying like not only just lift up your posture, but understand what you're saying.
And that makes a big difference. Like my mom would also every single day, like if I would to memorize a page, she'd read me the translation. Even though I didn't speak Arabic then, I spoke Arabic, started speaking Arabic after, but I still had an idea. So once I started reading Arabic, now it's much easier for me to understand the Quran than it would if my mom didn't read the translation to me, because then you can, especially for non-Arab speakers, you can connect to it more when you understand what you're reading.
Gotcha.
You like some surahs will have stories, like for example Surah Kahf, right? It was much easier to memorize it. Obviously we read it every Friday. Maybe another surah would be different, but like you know the story, so you're like, okay, if you can't remember what comes next, you're like, what happened next in the story, and then you try and translate that into Arabic.
Cool. So there you go, guys. If you really want to increase or make more excellent your engagement with the words of Allah and the Quran, use multiple sensory methods of engagement: reading, reciting, listening, writing. And if you need to look for that, just look up Wissam's name on YouTube, Wissam Sharif, learn to read, learn to write, any of those things, and move forward with your commitment towards connecting with the Book of Allah. Anyway, if you ever see any of us, we have, again, this was a tag-along discussion with Raha from Colorado, now living in Saudi. You have Reem from originally from Houston, but living in Doha, Qatar. Ammar from Maryland, and yours truly, Bilal, from Houston. If you see us, don't be shy. Say hi. Assalamu alaikum.